As usual, before I start, I am talking about spoilers. Not just spoilers for the most recent book, but also the previews for the next 2 books. This is your chance to run. Warrior Cats isn't a stranger to cliffhangers recently, and we're never convinced by them. Shadowsight quote-unquote dies at the end of one of the Broken Code books, and while a lot of people hoped they had killed a protagonist, I didn't know anybody who actually thought it was true. Likewise, when they quote-unquote killed Frostpaw recently, I didn't think they were actually killing her for even a second, and not just because it was already spoiled she was alive in the next book's preview. But obviously, this wasn't the only cliffhanger at the end of the last book. Frostpaw is attacked, sure, but at the same time, Sunbeam comes to ThunderClan to join Nightheart, and Squirrelflight is about to leave to ask StarClan to grant her 9 lives in favor of the 2 years older and deeply mentally and physically weary Bramblestar's retirement. Sunbeam coming to ThunderClan is a big one because it's just a very frequent theory I see proposed to me lately in video comments. It's the idea that Sunbeam is just pretending to come to ThunderClan for Nightheart and is instead coming to spy, and I don't buy it, but I'll go over it anyways. So back when I read the most recent book, not just me, but basically all the people I was reading with saw Sunbeam's change of heart at face value. This is definitely for a good reason. Nearly everything in Warrior Cats is supposed to be taken at face value. We haven't been truly and honestly deceived about something since Arc 3, and even then the foreshadowing and hints were everywhere. Well, I guess this depends. I guess this is kind of leaning a little bit on if or not you think that the whole Ashfur being imposter Bramblestar thing was more twist-aligned or more, like, deception aligned, and I really just think it's more of a who is this mystery cat situation more so than deliberately trying to fake us out like they did with Hollyleaf. If a character is being unreasonable about something or they're evil, they really drill in their behavior over and over again that you're not supposed to trust them. They're framed like Splashtail has been framed, obviously suspicious and obviously something to take notice of. Well, not in book 2, but I guess maybe we're supposed to read Splashtail being overly helpful in book 2 poorly. Either way, Splashtail in book 1 and 3 written extremely suspiciously on purpose. So if Sunbeam was a spy for any reason at all, that would probably be because she's doing it because she thinks it's the right thing to do. I mean, like, I'm saying she would do it out of her heart and not out of, I'm gonna get Nightheart back for using me, you know? Even if she was spying, she does have definite actual feelings for Nightheart, so it would be a little bit more complicated than her just being, you know, evil. At the end of the last book, Sunbeam is angry. She's hurt and betrayed and feels like Nightheart used her, which, in many ways, he kind of did. He came into the clan unannounced, without asking beforehand, declared his intention to be in a relationship with her, and caused her to fall to pressure to try dating him. And don't get me wrong, she already liked him a little, but he did all of this without any agreement from Sunbeam prior, and obviously, Sunbeam coming to ThunderClan now is almost the exact same situation, but it's the exact same situation after, you know, they spent how many months being mates or pretending to be mates in ShadowClan? Anyway, then at the last minute, he purposefully fails his assessment and takes off back to ThunderClan, which he was still worried about and somewhat loyal to. When he leaves, Sunbeam curses him out, lashes her tail, thinks hurt thoughts, and even finds comfort in her clearly evil and manipulative mother. The chapter leaves off with, "You know, you can't trust cats outside of ShadowClan," Berryheart continued. "Better stick to the cats we know." Only that morning, talk like this would have infuriated Sunbeam, but now, as she pondered a future without a cat who'd stolen her heart, she couldn't help wondering whether her mother was right about everything. But in the next chapter where we see her, she's clearly still in love with him. She has a nightmare about Nightheart getting together with a pretty ThunderClan Silverstream that doesn't exist, unless you count Fernstripe, former WindClan warrior who was there to date the previously characterized antagonistically Shelfer. Anyway, she mulls over every man she knows to consider if or not she would date them, and the narration even refers to her mother with the brief sympathy between them after Nightheart left had vanished. She has a lot of hostility for her mother throughout the last chapter that she has to herself in the book. She disagrees with Tiger Star's occupation of RiverClan, she disagrees with her mother's philosophies, and she thinks to herself, "Whatever I decide will be wrong," she thought with a sigh. "A storm is coming, I can feel it in my fur." And then the very next chapter she arrives in ThunderClan, clumsily stumbling through joining. She's honest and tells him she doesn't know if she can fight her former clanmates. She really doesn't show any signs of deception, and her previous ire towards Nightheart has dried up the chapter before when she saw her mom being xenophobic again and realized she was either politically opposed to or disgusted by the idea of every single boy available to her. Of which, I think there's only 2 of them? Speaking of which, small tangent, how do I get the Errands to write more scenes where the cats just sit around thinking about which of their clanmates they would date? Or like that scene where Lionblaze is trying to figure out who's training in the Dark Forest and just starts assessing everybody? I know this is like tell and don't show writing, but every single time it entertains me way more than it should for half a page of dialogue about who a cat won't date. Additionally, ShadowClan is a bit she-cat heavy. There are 9 Tom warriors and 15 she-cat warriors, not counting Clovertail because she's the deputy, but out of those she-cats, Sunbeam is also only unrelated to 2 single ones, Pouncestep and Snaketooth, as most of ShadowClan is direct descendants of Snowbird. So the theory is that Sunbeam is actually still very upset with Nightheart, and actually she's coming to ThunderClan to spy, but that doesn't hold a lot of weight when you consider the last Sunbeam chapter before this happens, the one where she says, "Whatever she decides will be wrong." I feel like this theory is overall just wishful thinking. It would be nice if Sunbeam didn't immediately forget that Nightheart played with her feelings, or that Nightheart wasn't actually willing to go the lengths that he implied he was willing to go to be with her. Nobody wants to think that the character blinked and got over it, but all signs are pointing to yes. Another thing that's brought up is the preview for Wind, and yeah, as usual, we have the preview for the book after the book that is coming out next. It includes this fraction of a larger sentence. And Sunbeam's efforts to fit in as the newest member of ThunderClan are hampered by her concerns for her mother. Which obviously implies that she's at least trying to fit in as a new member of ThunderClan. That said, I wouldn't say this alone disproves the otherwise already unlikely theory, because I believe strongly that no matter how devious they would suddenly decide to make Sunbeam, she would end up earnestly dating Nightheart by the end of Book 4. What the preview does imply, however, is that Nightheart isn't even going to be in ThunderClan for a large chunk of the next book. Which I do feel might make any chances of Sunbeam having any sort of devious plot fall in favor of having a book of Sunbeam trying to navigate being a ThunderClan newcomer without Nightheart's help. And that also might be why Sunbeam is alone with his mother and sister on the cover of the next book. I'm going to optimistically hope that they're helping and sticking up for her. Oh, please let them write Sparkpelt supportive of this. Please, 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 please. I don't want them to re-demonize her after having the makeup in the last book. Honestly, I'm worried in general as to which cats are going to be chosen for ThunderClan's anti-change, outsider-hating cats. If we didn't have that resolution last book, they would have hit Sparkpelt with it for sure. And I've got a bad feeling that they've got their eyes on poor Poppy Frost for their xenophobic mom agenda. But maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised and they'll go with cats that actually, make sense based on prior behavior, like Blossomfall, Thornclaw, and Bumblestripe. All we know about the former WindClan cat Fernstripe is that she's been actually well accepted in ThunderClan though, so we'll see. Sunbeam also probably isn't a spy because she isn't privy to a lot of what Nightheart knew about the possible war situation. I mean, she wasn't until she came. Although she does have what is otherwise a nightmare where Scrollflight has become leader, her thoughts are concerned with if or not she should tell Tigerstar that Berryheart was involved in Warrior Cat's 1,000,000 moms, not ThunderClan attacking, Nightheart aside. Her concerns lie with the RiverClan ShadowClan situation and aren't really factoring ThunderClan into them, and her going to ThunderClan could probably be read more as an escape from being stuck in the middle of that conflict than anything. Generally, I think most of why this one gets a lot of attention lately is half because a lot of people get their book information secondhand, and half wishful thinking that Sunbeam is going to have something to do outside of romantic relationships. But who knows, I guess. Now, I think there's also a possibility, if I were to give it one last crumb of hope, that she becomes convinced to spy by someone in ShadowClan after she's joined ThunderClan, but that's entirely tinfoil hat stuff, as the non-Sunbeam ShadowClan cats have even less of an idea as to what's going on currently. So, I don't believe it. I don't think that Sunbeam is evil, but I figured I'd give it my best consideration anyway because a lot of people wanted me to talk about it. Wanted me to talk about it. Not just talk about. Granted, I guess a lot of people also just want me to talk about